How did it inform your creative process, getting involved in that?
So many people who organize those events and who for decades have fought those frontline issues, and we should preserve those stories and those records from their perspectives. So I cherish a lot of those images because they're not mine, they're the community's, and so that's kind of what my next drops. I've released one from my own personal work, and then I am working with my collectors to kind of curate down over 21,000 images of social justice work.
You're tuned to the ArCast, where we talk about the blockchain on the ArCast and how your data remains. It's the ArCast, where ArDrive is the topic, censorship-resistant permanence. Yeah, we got it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 12 of the ArCast. It's your host, Andrew, back with another interview. This week, we talked to Amy J. Smith about how she got started in photography, how she got into Web3, and specifically how she's been using Arweave and ArDrive to document various social justice movements through her photography and her writing. She talks about coming from Indiana to California. And we also talk about how we can potentially involve more women in the blockchain sphere. So it was a great interview, and I really enjoyed talking to Amy. And Stop, Drop, and Upload Inferno launches in May. This is our new user rewards program where when you upload consistently, you will be rewarded with ArDrive tokens. For more info, go to ardrive.io/inferno. And this was voted on by the community. So it's exciting to see everyone getting involved with the DAO. Thank you, everyone who came out to the community call last Friday. We had an awesome turnout, and it's just so exciting to see the community grow and to see all the amazing things the community members are doing, such as Amy. So this is my interview with Amy J. Smith. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the ArCast. I'm here with photographer, writer, Arweave advocate, Amy J. Smith, who is an LA-based artist who's doing a lot of work to help empower artists and feel more friendly. Amy, thank you for being on the show. It's really cool to talk to you today.
Thank you so much, friend. I really appreciate your team over there and at ArDrive and Arweave. So you guys have taught me a lot.
That's awesome. You were telling me that one of the things that you love to do is learn more about the blockchain space so you can help other artists be educated. How has your journey into this world affected you as an artist and as a human?
Well, really, it it's funny, how we go through life and we see these different kind of, synchronicities or whatever we want to call them. And when I was younger, I was gifted some ancestry documents. And so since I was younger, I've kind of gone down that rabbit hole. And when I found images on the internet of my great-great-grandparents that nobody had ever seen, that was kind of one of those moments of what archiving meant, even just in a family sense. And then I kind of randomly got a digital archiving job, which I didn't even really know was an occupation before I got the position. I just knew how to use Capture One and a Phase One. And so then that took it to the level of what does it mean to truly preserve your archive longer than your own life. Looking at a 1900s images and documents from this photographer, and it was so well preserved, dates and names and all this stuff we kind of take for granted with Lightroom. So I kind of went down that journey of, okay, so I can keyword everything, I can get it totally preserved. And then I found you guys as far as a permanent storage where, it's not just a cloud, corporate access. Now we are able to truly have our own little home on the internet to store, whether it's for our family or historical documents, or hopefully in the future some type of token gated access that we can utilize these permanent storages through.
How did it inform your creative process, getting involved in that?
Also, then, I've done a lot of social justice, kind of documenting the community here in Los Angeles. And throughout, the last 7-8 years, it was always to kind of tell those stories. And we see on mainstream media that a lot of times, the photographer's winning awards, but people don't really understand the frontline issue. It's not a citizen journalist perspective. So then when it came to my, capturing those movements, it definitely played a lot into how do we preserve these? Even still to this day, we're trying to download live streams off of Facebook, so we can in the future upload those to ArDrive, and it is kind of a permanent record of what happened through these last COVID years and the 2020 years, and then even before that. There's just so many people who organize those events and who for decades have fought those frontline issues, and we should preserve those stories and those records from their perspectives. So I cherish a lot of those images because they're not mine, they're the community's, and so that's kind of what my next drops. I've released one from my own personal work, and then I am working with my collectors to kind of curate down over 21,000 images of social justice work.
On amyjsmith.com, you have, under your journey tab, you have two really interesting pages. You have this documentation of the Standing Rock story, and you have pictures from Charlottesville, and they're beautiful photos that reflect what you're talking about. Would you mind talking about those collections?
Both of those are extremely emotional. You can see on the Standing Rock one, from those very beginning days, it was Indigenous led. And one of the reasons I wanted to document that movement, that was the first movement that I started to document. There was a filmmaker that was there doing drone footage. And being able to watch that on live stream from LA in Standing Rock, it was so inspiring, and to show that solidarity, it was like, all right, this is the tool I have. I can tell the stories of the people here. And the Indigenous school that helped lead those movements, Simias, it's like, for them, I want to, help in any way with these images, preserving those, because those kids are now growing up, and it's like, I remember the very first time I heard them speak, and it like brought me to tears to see like, oh my gosh, a future generation that, is going to save the day, I guess. But it's like the digital smoke signals page, that was what really moved me to help document from the people's perspective and not from my own sell it to Alame. So I never sold anything because it was always truly for us. And Mr. Dewey passed away while I was making that page. So it kind of solidified, synchronicities of life, of like, keep this path going. It's important because a lot of people saw that movement on the mainstream, but to really preserve the real frontline versions of what was happening on all fronts. There's many photographers who have these type of archives, I guess.
And that's beautiful, because it's like showing your community, the LA community response and the connection, and how we're all really going through the same struggle in a way of trying to be heard and trying to make the world better, I think.
Certainly. And then how we, kind of show how big that solidarity is when it's coming from a mainstream kind of CNN headline. It's like, how do we really show the world that all of us are connected and we all can work together to build bridges, see what we want to see happen in order to break away from oil and divest from big banks. It's like, I see Web3 as a huge possibility for that, kind of giving the freedom of transacting with one another. And what does that look like, now in a new world we're building?
When I think about Web3, I think about like the bridge between the 20th and 21st centuries. And before the interview, we both talked about how we're fans of old school hip hop. And when I think about like hip hop's cultural agency, was this ability for people to, with sampling, with rapping, with retelling stories of the past in a new context, reclaiming the narratives that we've been told in a way that is personal and makes sense to us. And I was wondering if you, Amy, would be able to like describe how that philosophy might connect to the idea of what it means to be self-sovereign and how you feel about that term, and if that relates to your art at all.
Most certainly so. I think when we look at decentralization and not just, a lot of people think governance, but it's also that collaboration, just like film or hip hop, it does take a team, and there's all sorts of different perspectives that are going to, whether that's bringing justice or bringing solutions to communities. And so I think when it comes to artists that do photojournalism and documentarian work, the more we are doing it from a grassroots perspective and not from a top-down perspective of AP or Getty, the more we're able to dilute the mainstream narrative. The more we're able to truly tell a wide variety of stories and not just that one headline, story at the border that this happened that is being repeated all over the news. It's like, let's really personalize what's going on. And, I would love to see old school hip hop kind of preserved on the archive like that, where, we can tell that story of 4 elements of hip hop and why those amazing leaders that formed, like KRS-One. It's like that's what got me into hip hop, was seeing, the Temple of Hip Hop, and the first time I saw them live, and just going from Indiana mainstream top 40 music at 18, and then at 19 to see KRS like that. It was a huge paradigm shift as far as music, and I think that was probably one of the awakening moments of like, oh wow, what else is in the world that isn't on MTV and the radio, and maybe made me a little of a rebel.
Yeah, KRS-One, he was like a huge inspiration for me because he brought that spiritual element. He wrote that really great book, The Gospel of Hip Hop, which really was, when I was in my mid-20s, that book was really inspirational to me because it was reflective of his quest to draw connections between the culture, the people, the stories that exist beyond like what we're told is good music, is pop music. And so it's cool you mentioned him because he's a big inspiration. So you said you grew up in Indiana. What were some of the things that helped you, inspired you along your journey to the West Coast?
Well, it's, to even get to Los Angeles, it's like I never dreamt of making films as a kid. I was not one of those that dreamed of Los Angeles. And I made the move at 19 to Phoenix, and I did real estate. And of course, finding underground hip hop and all those things at such a young age, that definitely pushed me towards b-boy culture. And a lot of my first days of photo shoots were a lot of dancers and b-boy competitions and things. And so then, as I progressed as a photographer, I was also modeling. And so, of course, I kind of fell into I want to shoot fashion and beauty. And I took a apprenticeship here, and it was actually in Santa Ana. I moved to San Diego, like North San Diego County. And I didn't have a car. I didn't realize how far Santa Ana was. All my modeling jobs were in Los Angeles. I just came here and was like, okay, we're going to make this work. So I spent a lot of time on the Amtrak. And,
wow.
Then I got here and people would see my modeling book and they're like, you should be in Europe. This is not the type of fashion here. And so that pushed me even more to, photograph my friends and actors and models that I met along the way in their natural light. I know I say like capture light a lot, and it truly is that like authentic version of people's selves, to show them like you don't have to be airbrushed and skinny and all these things. Like we're all beautiful and we should all be comfortable in our skin. So I definitely shied away from the modeling after a while once I saw kind of that whole world, and, continued on my capturing friends. And now I do a lot of musicians and really working on how to, use your guys' ArDrive as well to build all these ideas I have with my social justice. That's like been my last 6 months, is really digging into that.
On your site, you talk about your journey into blockchain. Where did Arweave enter into this narrative?
I probably would have never, understood the value of having my own smart contract and the metadata. If it wasn't for Murat Pak, he does, a lot of kind of encrypted tweets and things, but those have taken me down a lot of rabbit holes, kind of researching like, okay, if I start this, I obviously don't want a shared contract on OpenSea. And so then when I started searching out Manifold and they had Arweave, and then I found the HTML pages, I was like, oh, okay, now I have to figure out how to use Arweave and ArDrive. And once I saw how easy it was, I keep trying to tell everyone, like, guys, it's easy. Like, it's just like opening Google Drive. Like,
the stereotype, it seems, with Web3 and blockchain, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the stereotype is that it feels very male-dominated. And I'm wondering if you think that's true, if that's just my opinion, and what it's like being a woman in the space, if you don't mind speaking on that.
Everybody shares around the statistics, and we can see, there's the discrepancy. And I think that also comes down a lot with kind of how males and females communicate. I think a lot of women think they need to match the male type of energy in spaces to be seen. And I think, there are some men that kind of are opening the seat with a listening ear and allowing women to be our matriarchal, compassionate selves rather than, I've always had a problem with this. Like, I've worked in cannabis a long time, and even in film, it's like women are, for me, I'm not very confrontational, and sometimes when something, men don't listen anyways, and so then it kind of prevents us from speaking out. And so I think the more our society kind of understands that, we communicate in two different ways, and society has put a lot of pressures on a lot of us to kind of survive on our own. But I think in Web3, we can really start to understand each other a little better as far as communication style, where we're not all, in this very ego boastful ways. It's like, I know hip hop is very, very competitive in battle rapping. And it's like, how do we show each other's qualities rather than trying to meet this sales pitchy kind of tone that I think a lot of this space is. And we see a lot of the, like, even Pac, like, we don't know if it's a male or a female, or, it's kind of an AI. So it's like, we also have that kind of, option for people to kind of be whatever they want to be. And, the more we allow each other to be vulnerable, I think it'll open up better communication styles. So everybody can see that they have a place in here, and, not so much working from the top down. It's like really looking around us and seeing, okay, what can we build together, instead of, oh, these people aren't looking at us or they are not doing it. Okay, let's build it.
Yeah, do you feel like that's like reflective of the artist community or just in general, the Web3 community? What would you say about that?
I will say I am extremely blessed with the Ash community. I've been going through some family things the last couple days, and to get on my Twitter and see so much support and love and messages, and try not to get emotional because it truly, like, the Ash community is 1 in a million. I've never, thought like, oh, wow, like, some people I've known weeks, some people I've known months, but the support, the encouragement, and they're all the same, it's like they all want to learn. They're all teaching each other also, and pushing the space and what we can design with the contracts, what we can design with longevity and gaming and tokenomics, and that obviously spawns from POC. Him kind of leaving breadcrumbs. I say he leaves the breadcrumbs, and we all kind of like, oh, let's Google this. What does this mean? And like takes me on all kinds of knowledge, extreme knowledge that I'm so thankful to have that type of community around me, and it's quite different than most of the space.
Would you mind talking a little bit about the Ash community? Because I've heard about it, but it's honestly something I don't know a lot about.
I kind of say it's an ecosystem within an ecosystem. It is on the Ethereum blockchain, so it is an ERC20. And the way that it was released was through burning POC's work. So there were different tiers. And so, it kind of allowed people who had collected early to kind of get Ash, and that burning mechanism of creating scarcity with his work. And so for me, I always tell everyone, I feel like he's showing us a model of possibilities, and that, we don't all have to just do Ethereum. And if we want to decentralize, we are going to kind of need to build these little pods that, then bridge and work together. And seeing the amount of like true friendship that has been birthed amongst this community is really beautiful. I've said synchronicity so many times, but it's like some of these people, we've been reading the same books our whole lives, like watching the same movies or inspired by the same things. And I kind of joke, I'm like, were we all just socially engineered by a social engineer? Because it's like, it's too crazy how alike we all are.
Yeah, that's cool. And how we all find each other, right? Like,
yes.
Is there anything you're working on that, as we wrap up, that you're excited about, or that you've just launched, that we can talk about and promote to the audience this week?
Well, right now I do have my kind of, I guess it's my Genesis drop. I did do the Obscura Who We Are grant in December. So those were kind of my first 3 mints. But the new project is up right now. And I'm working with the first collectors, going through kind of what I see the future of the social justice work being. So I'm actually going to be using ArDrive as like a proofing space for them, so I can upload thumbnails and they can kind of go through a larger selection of the days and the different topics, and us kind of as a community preserving and also creating, a narrative of what tells the best story together.
Where is the best place people can see and support that?
Right now on my Twitter, there are some links for my OpenSea. And then I do have, a Patreon where I put more of my kind of researched, and those also are my updates of Web3 from when I first started. I kind of put all my brain dumps there. So that also kind of breaks down a little bit of longevity, what I see. I've been in cannabis since 2009, and I see a big potential for hemp to be utilized for artists in creating vertically integrated supply chains, potentially through DAOs. So that's also something I'm kind of working on in the background. I did just have an unfortunate family event on this weekend, so I'll be gone for a few days back in Indiana, but I will be back.
I'm sorry to hear about that, and I hope that you all can find some peace, and we'll be thinking good thoughts.
Thank you. I had to do it because through all these months, my niece has been there, my listening ear when, it seemed impossible or it was tough or I felt alone. And so I know that she would want me to do this because we've been looking forward to it together. So it also, like going through a family archive, it also meant a lot right now to like archiving popping up again of, going through years of family photos and photo adventures, and, being able to keep those, so that all of my family can access them and not just my hard drive.
To celebrate her memory, it sounds like.
One day I will have them all a folder on ArDrive.
That's special. Well, that's the permanence and the things we create and the people we inspire, like that doesn't go away.
I appreciate you so much, and you guys keep putting up the videos, and I definitely send them off to people in different spaces, and anything that I can do to help you guys get the word out or any of those things, I am here for you guys.
Thank you, Amy. We'll keep the conversation going, and like I said, amyjsmith.com, really beautiful website. Please check it out.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Andrew, and thank you to the teams over there.
Be sure to follow Amy's work, support her creativity. Be sure to keep following the ArDrive social media channels. We'll be back in 2 weeks with Big Arch, who's a YouTuber who talks a lot about Arweave and ArDrive. So we'll see you then. Thanks for listening. Have a great week.